Vietnam War 1970. The secret Laos mission CNN got wrong. It was September of 1970, and 16 American Green Berets and 100 Montagnard tribesmen were about to jump out of helicopters into a country the United States had officially never sent troops to. The mission would be classified for 28 years. When CNN finally tried to tell the story in 1998, the network would burn its own reputation to the ground in 3 weeks. Stay with this one, because the real Operation Tailwind is one of the strangest Vietnam stories ever declassified. And the fake version of it nearly destroyed a major American newsroom. The unit was called the Studies and Observations Group. The name sounded boring on purpose. MACV-SOG was one of the most secret commands of the entire Vietnam War. Created in 1964, it ran covert ground operations in Laos, Cambodia, and North Vietnam, all of which were officially off-limits to American forces. The men who worked for SOG were drawn from the Special Forces, the Navy SEALs, and the Marine Force Recon companies. They were the best the American military had. They went into countries the United States had publicly promised not to enter. They wore sterile uniforms with no markings. If they were killed, the government would deny they had been there. By 1970, SOG had been running cross-border missions for 6 years. The casualty rate among its American operators ran over 100%. Some teams lost every man, and then their replacements lost every man, and then the replacements of the replacements lost every man, all in the same calendar year. Operation Tailwind was one of those missions. In late summer 1970, the CIA's secret operation in northern Laos was in trouble. Among Army the CIA had been funding for years was being pushed back by the North Vietnamese on a region called the Plain of Jars. The agency asked SOG for a diversion. The plan was straightforward in the way SOG plans tended to be. A small force would be inserted deep into southern Laos, behind enemy lines, and would create enough chaos that the North Vietnamese would have to redirect troops south to deal with it. That would relieve pressure on the Plain of Jars. The unit chosen was Hatchet Force B Company, drawn from SOG's Command and Control Central Detachment. 16 Green Berets, about 110 Montagnard tribesmen, members of the indigenous hill peoples who had been fighting alongside American Special Forces since the early years of the war. The commander was a captain named Eugene McCarley. The target was an enemy logistics base camp roughly 50 miles inside Laos. The mission was called Tailwind. On the morning of the 11th of September 1970, 16 helicopters lifted the force out of South Vietnam and flew them west. Across the border the United States had not officially crossed. The landing zone was hot. The North Vietnamese had been watching the area for weeks. Within minutes of the helicopters touching down, the force was under heavy fire. Some of the Montagnards were wounded in the first 10 minutes. The Green Berets pushed off the landing zone and moved into the jungle. For the next 96 hours, McCarley's force fought a running battle through enemy territory. They engaged enemy patrols, they ambushed supply lines, they destroyed a base camp. They drew exactly the kind of attention the CIA had hoped they would. The North Vietnamese pulled troops south to find them. Every American in the force was wounded at some point during the operation, some of them more than once. 2 of the Montagnards were killed. At several points during the operation, the force used a chemical weapon. Specifically, they used CBU-19. This was a cluster bomb that dispersed CS gas, the tear gas used by police forces around the world. SOG operators were authorized to use CS to break contact when surrounded. They used it during Tailwind. This was not a secret. CS was a legal battlefield chemical agent under the international agreements that governed warfare in 1970. The United States military used it openly in Vietnam. It was not nerve gas. It was not sarin. It was the same gas police used at riots. The men of Tailwind used it to escape ambushes. It saved their lives. They came out of Laos. After the operation, Every American who took part received the Presidential Unit Citation. The mission was considered, in the SOG community, one of the most successful hatchet force operations of the war. It was also classified. The American government never publicly admitted that ground troops had operated in Laos. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, the surviving members of Tailwind did not talk about what they had done. The mission report sat in a vault. It came out eventually. In 1998, on the 7th of June 1998, the CNN program Newsstand aired an investigative piece called Valley of Death. It was a joint production with Time magazine. The reporters were Jack Smith and April Oliver. The on-air correspondent was Peter Arnett. The piece told the world that during Operation Tailwind, the United States military had used sarin nerve gas. It also said the mission's real purpose had been to hunt down and kill American defectors who had gone over to the North Vietnamese. It was a bombshell. It implied a war crime. It implied that the American military had hunted its own soldiers with a chemical weapon banned by international law. It also was not true. Within hours of the broadcast, members of the actual Tailwind force began calling CNN to say the reporters had got the story wrong. Captain McCarley, retired by then, denied every key claim. The men who had ordered the gas drops denied them. The pilots denied them. The doctors who treated the wounded denied them. The Pentagon launched a formal review. CNN brought in an outside lawyer named Floyd Abrams to investigate the network's own reporting. The review found that the producers had stretched their sources, that the sarin claim was not supported by the evidence, and that the defector claim rested on a single retired admiral whose memory of events 28 years earlier was unreliable. 3 weeks after the broadcast, CNN retracted the entire story. Producers Jack Smith and April Oliver were fired. Peter Arnett, one of the most decorated war correspondents of his generation, was formally reprimanded. He left the network a few months later. The Pentagon's own investigation, released later in 1998, confirmed what the men of Tailwind had said. CS tear gas had been used. Sarin nerve gas had not. There were no American defectors at the target site. Operation Tailwind itself was finally declassified. The surviving members of the hatchet force were able to speak openly about what they had done in Laos. Some of them wrote memoirs. Some of them appeared on documentaries. Most of them died slowly in the years that followed. The wounds had not healed clean. The Montagnards who had fought alongside them mostly vanished. Many were killed by the communist government of Laos in the years after the war. Some fled to refugee camps in Thailand and eventually reached the United States. The CNN report became a case study at journalism schools. It is still taught. It is one of the most famous retractions in modern American news. The hatchet force is buried in books most people will never read. McCarley died at his home in 2018. He was 83. He had carried a piece of Laos in his back for almost half a century. That is all for this one. If Operation Tailwind stuck with you, hit subscribe. War Stories After Dark is going to keep digging into the missions the cameras got wrong. Drop a comment about a declassified operation that deserves an episode. And share this one with someone who needs to know what a hatchet force was.